First, we have heel strike. This is when the extensors are contracting eccentrically to decelerate the leg. The ground reaction force is anterior to the hip. Then, at the knee, the ground reaction force is anterior. The hamstrings are contracting to control knee extension, likely eccentrically before they switch to concentric. Then at the foot and ankle, the ground reaction force is posterior, and the dorsiflexors are eccentrically contracting to control plantar flexion. The next phase is foot flat. The ground reaction force is anterior to the hip, and the extensors are concentrically activating to begin moving the hip from flexion into extension. The ground reaction force is posterior to the knee, and the quads are activated eccentrically to control knee flexion and prevent buckling. Then the ground reaction force is posterior to the ankle but quickly switches to anterior in order for the plantar flexors to activate eccentrically to control closed chain dorsiflexion as the body moves forward on the ankle. The next phase is mid-stance. The ground reaction force is posterior to the hip, which means the hip flexors, iliopsoas, is eccentrically contracting to control hip extension. Then the ground reaction force is anterior to the knee, in which the gastrocs and hamstrings contract eccentrically to control knee extension. Finally, at the foot and ankle, the ground reaction force is anterior to it, and the plantar flexors are eccentrically contracting to control dorsiflexion. This is heel off, where the ground reaction force is posterior to the hip, which means the hip flexors are continuing to work eccentrically. The ground reaction force is anterior to the knee, which means the hamstrings are activating concentrically to induce knee flexion, and the ground reaction force is anterior to the foot and the ankle, which means the plantar flexors are contracting concentrically to prepare for push-off. Next is toe off, where the ground reaction force is posterior to the hip, and the iliopsoas switches to concentric contraction to help move the limb forward. At the knee, the ground reaction force is posterior to it, which means the quads are contracting eccentrically. At the foot and the ankle, the ground reaction force is anterior, which means the dorsiflexors are contracting concentrically to lift the foot from the ground. Now we're in the acceleration phase, where the hips are concentrically activating to help move the limb forward, while the knee is activating eccentrically with the knee extensors to control passive knee flexion, and at the ankle, the dorsiflexors are contracting concentrically to keep the foot clear off the ground. Now we're in mid-swing, where the hip is contracting concentrically by the hip flexors. The quadriceps are eccentrically contracting at the knee to control knee flexion, and at the foot and ankle, the dorsiflexors are contracting concentrically to still keep the foot up off the ground. Finally, we're in the deceleration phase, where the extensors at the hip are contracting eccentrically to decelerate the leg. The hamstrings are eccentrically contracting to control extension, and the ankle dorsiflexors are isometrically contracting to keep the foot clear off the ground. This is Trendelenburg gait, where there is weakness of the right hip abductors causing the pelvis to drop on the opposite side. In this case, the left hip drops while the right leg is in stance. The right gluteus medius and minimus cannot keep the pelvis level during single leg support. This gait abnormality is known as steppage gait, where there is weakness of the right dorsiflexors causing the foot to drag during swing, so the person must lift the right leg high with exaggerated hip and knee flexion. This large stepping motion helps the toes clear the ground. When the right foot lands, it often slaps because the dorsiflexors can't control the descent. This gait compensation is known as a hip hike. As you can see, they're lifting their right pelvis up during the swing phase to clear the right foot off the ground. This usually happens if the right leg can't bend or dorsiflex well enough, like limited knee flexion or foot drop. The hike shortens the effective leg length so the right foot doesn't drag. This gait compensation is known as circumduction. The right leg is swinging out in a wide arc during swing phase instead of moving straight forward. This happens because the right leg is functionally too long, often from limited knee flexion, weak hip flexion, or even foot drop, so it can't clear the ground normally. By swinging the right leg outward, the body creates extra space to advance the limb without dragging the foot.